They say some houses don't just keep memories, they keep the dead. When most people think of The Grudge, they picture pale faces in the dark, twisted necks, and that bone-rattling croak. But few realize that the horror on screen was inspired by something real, something far darker than fiction dares to touch. A murder, a curse. It begins in the heart of Tokyo, where narrow streets press together and silence falls heavy after midnight. There stands a house, once like any other, until it became the stage for an unspeakable act. A husband, consumed by jealousy and rage, discovered a secret he could not bear. He killed his wife, brutally, mercilessly, and it's said her spirit never left. Japanese folklore has a word for this: onryo, a vengeful ghost, born from violent death, fueled by a hatred so powerful it clings to the world of the living. But unlike Western hauntings where spirits linger in graveyards or abandoned halls, an onryo infects the very place where it dies. Its fury seeps into the walls, into the floorboards, into the air itself. Anyone who enters becomes marked. And so, the curse spreads. This is where fact and legend intertwine. The case was never splashed across international headlines, but locals knew. Neighbors reported screams tearing through the night, a sound no one wanted to hear twice. The police, when they arrived, refused to stay longer than necessary. The scene was closed, the home sealed, but still the stories leaked. One officer admitted he felt hands on his neck while he inspected the stairwell. Another swore the shadows moved against him. They laughed nervously about it at first, until both resigned within the year. That house became a wound in the neighborhood, avoided by everyone. But horror feeds on curiosity. And soon urban legends began to circulate. Teens dared each other to step inside. Some did. Some never spoke of what they saw. Others never returned. And yet, the story of the onryo, of the woman who would not rest, wasn't new. For centuries, Japan has told tales of such spirits, wrongs that cannot be undone, deaths that scream into eternity. It was inevitable that one filmmaker would capture this terror and bring it to life. But before Hollywood, before Sarah Michelle Gellar, there was Takashi Shimizu, a director haunted by a fascination with fear itself. He heard the whispers about the cursed house. He studied the folklore of onryo, and he wondered, what if the screen could carry a curse the way a home could? His short films in the late 1990s were like trial runs, experiments in transmitting dread. No cheap jump scares, just the suffocating weight of inevitability. His stories featured a family home, a murdered wife and child, and the unstoppable rage that followed. When filming began, the cast and crew reported strange occurrences on set. Lights flickered, doors slammed. A child actor refused to enter one of the rooms, crying that she was already inside. Shimizu himself admitted to nightmares that matched scenes he hadn't yet written, as if the story was telling itself through him. And when the films were released, something even stranger happened. Viewers around the world described an identical sensation, a weight on their chest while watching, that sense that the curse wasn't trapped in the story, but was leaking into reality. If you've ever watched The Grudge and felt a chill crawl up your spine long after the credits rolled, you're not alone. Maybe it's just the power of suggestion. Or maybe, just maybe, you carried a fragment of her rage home with you. Remember, curses don't ask permission. Even now, the original house, the real one, where that terrible murder took place, is said to remain standing. Locals warn outsiders away. They say if you knock on the door, you'll hear a woman answer. A woman who hasn't been alive for decades. And if you dare to step inside, you don't just enter a building. You enter her grief, her fury, her endless need to make the living suffer as she suffered. That is the true story behind The Grudge. Not a movie monster, not a Hollywood trick, but a legacy of rage carved into the bones of a home. If you're still listening, you're already braver than most. But tell me, would you enter that house? Leave your answer in the comments below. And while you're here, make sure to subscribe, because what comes next will take us deeper into the history of the curse itself. the history no film dared to show. The story of the cursed house is just one thread in a much older, darker tapestry. Because in Japan, an onryo is never alone. One of the earliest tales dates back to the Heian period over 1,000 years ago. A woman scorned by her lover prayed to the gods for vengeance. Her spirit, twisted by rage, returned after death. They say her screams shattered the night, and her presence poisoned every place she touched. The lesson was clear. Violence and betrayal birth monsters that never fade. And so the curse of the onryo became part of the culture, shaping theater, art, and superstition. The pale face, the long black hair, the sound that freezes your blood, all rooted in centuries of fear. When the story of the Grudge was born, it wasn't fiction plucked from thin air. It was an echo of that ancient warning, a new mask for an old terror. But here is the detail that unsettles even seasoned ghost hunters. Unlike other spirits, an onryo doesn't simply haunt. It infects. The curse is viral. It attaches itself to witnesses, to passers-by, to the unlucky who merely brush against its presence. You don't have to live in the house. You only need to enter it, or even hear its story to become part of the chain. And once you're marked, there is no escape. There are countless modern accounts that blur the line between movie myth and real curse. Fans visiting filming locations swear they've been followed home. A woman in Osaka reported waking each night to the sound of choking. When she finally set up a camera, she caught her own silhouette sitting up in bed, hair covering her face, while she herself lay motionless under the sheets. Skeptics laughed, until her body was found days later, neck broken. Coincidence? Maybe. But in Japan, coincidence is rarely enough to explain away the presence of an onryo. Takashi Shimizu himself admitted something chilling. During production, he avoided saying the character's name at night, as if speaking it aloud could invite her attention. Think about that. The man who created her story feared he might summon her into reality. And what about the cast? Many struggled with nightmares long after filming wrapped. Some reported hallucinations. One actress confessed she heard weeping in her apartment, always just behind the bathroom door. None of them stayed in character long enough for such haunting details to be a coincidence. But here's the question you must ask yourself. Why does this story grip us so tightly? Why does it feel more than fiction? Perhaps because we recognize something in it. The rage of betrayal, the helplessness of death. The idea that pain can be so raw, so powerful it tears a hole through the veil between life and what waits beyond. That's why the curse spreads, because it resonates. And maybe it's spreading to you now. The Grudge isn't just a film you watch, it's a story that watches you back. The very act of hearing it plants the seed. That's why folklore survives. That's why horror endures. The house in Tokyo still stands, shadowed and avoided. Travelers who search for it report the same thing. Silence heavier than sound. Windows blacker than night. And the feeling, undeniable, that someone is standing just inside, waiting for you to cross the threshold. Most turn away. Some don't. No one knows what becomes of them. If you've stayed with me this far, you've walked through the history, the folklore, the real murder that birthed a curse. And maybe you've felt that tug in your gut, that instinct telling you not to look over your shoulder right now. That's how you know the story is alive. So ask yourself, was it worth it? To know the truth behind the Grudge? Because truth has its own cost. And once you learn it, you can't return it. You can only carry it with you. Just like the curse itself. Sleep lightly tonight, and if you hear that sound, the low rattling croak like air escaping a broken throat, do not look for the source. Do not follow it, because she already knows where you are. If this story unsettled you, if it scratched that place in your mind that wonders what's real and what isn't, then let me keep telling you more. Subscribe for the next descent into darkness. Like this video so it spreads, just as curses do. And comment below. Tell me if you've ever felt followed after hearing a story. Until then, remember, Horror doesn't end with the credits. It lingers. It waits. And sometimes, it finds you.